I have a Bachelor in Music History and a Master's in Vocal Performance. And while most of my training has been in classical music and opera, I often work in musical theater. Just like bodies and beauty standards, the singing voice has been and likely always will be influenced by society and mediated by cultural trends. I'm going to go so far as to say that there is no natural singing voice. There's a huge variety of singing styles, and vocal technique has been adapted to fit the sounds and mannerisms of each. We're not born sounding any particular way. These styles don't exist in a vacuum, but instead have been influenced by historical and cultural factors. Gregorian chant, opera, musical theater, jazz, folk, pop, etc. are all quite distinctive, and most of you can hear the difference between them almost instantly, even though they're made with generally the same instrument. Breath control, phrasing, diction, range, resonance, placement. These are all words you might hear in a voice lesson, but how they're applied varies depending on what style you're trying to achieve. All of these things can be formally learned or mimicked and recreated and adopted by what we most often hear. Those are your vocal cords, Brezzo. Come on. I'd like to offer up a few examples of singing styles throughout history that showcase the unnatural voice. Disclaimer, I'm only using examples from Western music for now. I'm going to jump around. Here we go. Gregorian chant, used music as a means of communicating scripture in the 8th century. The focus was on the biblical text, so melodies were simple, often sung on repeated notes in order to bring out the words. Sung by only men or boys, these voices are almost hollow sounding with very little vibrato. Cool, I'm doing okay. Great. Castrati. Almost. Yeah. Castrati, the rock stars of 18th century Europe. These singers were... They were castrated before puberty in order to stop the normal development of their larynx. This, when combined with the support and breath control of an adult male body, resulted in a soprano-like voice with a huge range. Yup. Opera. Opera singers must be heard with zero amplification and with an entire orchestra between them and their audience. So how do they do it? Well, they learn incredible breath control using their abdominal muscles, their intercostal muscles, their pelvic floor, all to let the diaphragm drop fully. They're also taught proper resonance. Think of the difference between an acoustic and an electric guitar. An acoustic has a hollow belly. When the strings are plucked or strummed, the vibrations turn to sound, and the sound resonates inside the hollow space, thus creating amplification. This also happens with the hollow nasal cavities inside a person's face. The more resonance and the more stretch in the nasopharynx, not in your throat, but higher up and further back, the fuller the sound. Opera singers learn particular frequencies to their voices that create a sound that can carry to the back of any opera house. Pretty cool. Okay, for instance, you hear me okay, yeah? So I'm singing with lots of resonance, so it's easier for you to hear me without a microphone. Speaking of, the invention of the microphone had a huge impact in the way people sing. Suddenly people didn't have to worry about being loud enough to be heard, so they could play with softer, more intimate, more breathy type sounds. Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole, Barry Como, what do they all have in common? They're all crooners, a style of singing that was a direct result of this whole microphone business. They used jazz and blues stylings and had a new, playful freedom with their voices because even their softest tones they knew could be heard. My funny Valentine, sweet comic Valentine. You get the picture, right? I don't have to worry so much about projection because of this, so it all feels a little bit more intimate. In addition to amplification, the development of recording and mass distribution also meant that singers now had to worry about being very precise in their performances. Recording and broadcast technology allowed more people to hear new and different sounds, and styles started to blend. Recording technology also made it so that singers could play with harmonies and different balances and effects. Multiple takes, overdubbing, and long studio hours became common in the quest for the perfect take. All of these things affect how the voice gets used and presented in popular music. Eventually, a new technology was adopted that almost all of today's pop singers use: auto-tune. It's an audio processor that bends pitch. You can use it to create vocal effects, but it can also be used to cover up vocal imperfections. The singing we most often hear in pop music today is hardly ever the product of just human vocal cords. But to an alien observer who has never heard vocal music, it might sound perfectly natural. So this is the sound people now expect to hear, and so new singers are starting to adapt their own vocal technique to sound more like those recordings, and the evolution continues. Okay, singing is a means of expression, but it doesn't exist in a vacuum. The voice is influenced by culture and society, and so there really is no one natural sung sound. Thank you so much.